and two of them have some physical
Yeah, because
disability
I think there
or
was some
something.
definitely. Cause I think I saw maybe one might have had Down syndrome or
Yeah,
something like
Down
that.
syndrome, and then one of them has some, I forget what else, but something pretty heavy duty, like
It's a lot.
a lot to do for them. But yeah, it's a lot. I thought two kids was enough.
It's a lot. But no, Taylor, the one of the things that you think about, like, again, I'm almost 50, so you can go back and look. But some of the things that happen in
trashy.
Now, that sounds really Carbo,
Now, is the schedule for
Good evening, it's October 1st, 2020. We're here for a regularly scheduled Newmarket School Board meeting. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are here at the Town Hall, obviously, and we're at the public comment section. Susan, I didn't receive any public comments by email this week.
We did not either.
Didn't get any? I'll reiterate, if folks want to submit a public comment, there is space here for folks to attend the meeting in person. If they're not coming, of course, you can send us an email, or you can join us by phone at 224-999-1104, PIN number 994-903-232. So moving on to the reports. Taylor, do you have your student rep report?
Yeah, so for sports, cross country has an upcoming meet at Winnicott High School versus Hampstead Academy on October 9th at 4:15 p.m. Soccer, girls soccer had an away game today at 4 p.m. versus Park Christian Academy. Boys soccer has an away game at 3:30 at Dover High School this Friday. Student Council is hoping to hold trigger canning October 30th, 4 to 7 p.m., but is waiting on admin approval, and we're still working on a few logistics with that. Ms. McGilvery sent out an email to the class of 22 and 21 to volunteer the polls on Election Day. You can do it if you're 17 or older, and you must let her know by Friday, October 2nd, if you can volunteer. It includes some pre-training sessions as well that you have to commit to. Seniors who are in National Honor Society should fill out the NHS scholarship as soon as possible. Scholarship applications opened at 9 a.m. today and closed December 1st at 5 p.m., but students should wait to submit until the NHS advisor, Ms. Rosenberg, gives the okay. National Honor Society's first meeting will be October 5th at 2:30 p.m. And then Abby, Henry, and I have been meeting with administrators to set up a new volunteer group called Newmarket Teen Tutors. We are looking for juniors and seniors who are willing to volunteer their time to assist 6th to 9th graders in their homework projects and papers, as well as answer questions about how to stay organized. If you could reach out to Abby and I through our email or through text by October 2nd or October 7th, if you are a junior or senior volunteering, we would support.
Thank you. School committee reports. I have nothing additional about facilities to report since last meeting.
When we spoke last week at our retreat, we were talking about maybe having the policy committee meet to develop a policy. So probably, hopefully by the next meeting, we can get that on schedule.
Great.
We got a meeting October 6th.
Okay, Susan.
So a few updates. As I'd mentioned before, the members of the teachers union and administration have been meeting every Tuesday to work through some, little ruffles along the way. We're trying to resolve a few inequities related to working conditions and schedules, and we'll have another MOA meeting with Amy and Kim probably in the upcoming week. We'll probably have one more after that. We're not going to tackle modifications, evaluation process. We'll do that last. Through some of, these kind of adjustments that we'd like to make based on what we've seen now that we've opened school and some challenges we've had to overcome. So we're moving along. We've been able to address a lot of issues that were raised by teachers, and this would just be kind of codifying some of the conversations that we've had to date. And then Erica continues to work with the support staff to create a pivot plan. We have a pivot plan, as you can see, we've pivoted, but we've learned from this, and we actually have an actual documented pivot plan with checklists and we've taken the communication that I had written, or Principal Dalton had written, so that we have templates now ready to go if we have to do that. I had some of those templates written when we pivoted this last time, but we were able to, we learned from that. There's a few pieces of information, wanted, that were not in my document when I had sent it out, and based on that, we've updated the template so that, we make sure that we're giving parents and students the information that they're seeking. So we're pleased that we were able to do that. And then in the process, I updated the school cancellation trees and put together some documentation on, how to determine the school board policy, and then I've put that together with the decision tree and all of that, so that with codes, updated codes and all of that. So if we have snow days or something along those lines, those pieces are in place. So we worked on that, and the para pivot plan, we just signed the MOA, so she's working with them on that, and any other, little challenges that they've encountered. Jana is compiling the budget requests, so the principals were to provide a draft to her on Wednesday, and she's taking that and she's, kind of compiling it. From that, she'll give some summary documents, and then I'll meet with the team next week, and we'll review that. So we're knee-deep in the budget process now. Deb, our assistant superintendent, is working on a modified mentoring program. So obviously, like coaching and formal mentoring in the way that we would normally do it is not possible in our environment. And so she's working on modifying a mentoring program. She's been meeting with them. We had a 2-day orientation. One was on teaching, was on, how do you use the technology here, and logging in, and, getting familiar with our IEP process, and how do you access information about your students who may have 504 plan accommodation. So we did that on one day, and then she did a half day on classroom management. And then we're going to have a monthly session that she's going to lead with them, on different topics throughout the year. So she's the mentoring component of that is that you assign a teacher to work with another teacher, to kind of be, a person that you can ask questions to when they arise if you're having some challenges. And so we're working on a modified program for that, and putting together the testing program details for this year. She'll be sending a letter out to families tomorrow. She's met with the elementary school staff, and they've kind of refined, and created a to-do list of things that need to be done so that we can do some modified testing for this year. Learn where students where were gaps, as a result of our pivot to remote. So she'll be sending out a letter on that. Just again, a reminder, right now, looks like we're able to move forward with inviting students back into school at the junior senior high school on Monday. So we're pleased, and we've been able to hire a few more staff members in the meantime. So we still have some like monitors that we need to hire, and paraprofessionals. We also have some gaps in food service openings for custodians. And one of the things that we've learned is that delivering lunches takes more manpower, not surprise, than it does if you're going to have kids congregate and self-serve. And so our times for delivery at the elementary school in particular, but at the high school too, have been slower than what we can actually, time frames that we've set aside. So we need to add some staffing, because if we don't, then lunch is interfering, which has also been collapsed. So with a couple of terminations that occurred in the last week or so, I approached Jana and I asked if she could, the possibility of looking at outsourcing some portions of our, custodial food service program, and she's actively pursuing that. What it would look like essentially is staff, food service staff perhaps at the junior senior high school, move them down to the elementary, outsource, the junior senior high school piece, because we just can't get enough staff in order to be able to deliver, on a quality food service program, and it's not a fault of anybody, it's just, what's happening really, I think what's influencing them more money if they are on unemployment right now, and it's not worthwhile for them to work under these circumstances. I mean, if you're in a pandemic and you can, a lot of schools around us are having their kids, you know, in a remote learning environment, it just doesn't make for a robust population of folks that to fill all these positions. So they're all competing. So it's the same category, right? It's your monitors, it's your paras, it's your custodians, it's your food service, it's you know, a lot of workers in that category. And we can look at price structures too, but you need human beings, and it's not a huge group of people available. So this will help us and make us less vulnerable to having to shut down because these are considered all essential. So this is another way for us to be able to, you know, have a little bit of insurance. Others terminate, or if we have, you know, some folks that have to be quarantined right now, we, again, same situation we're in right now, we don't have a depth of workforce to be able to absorb that. And so this will give us a little bit more, you know, flexibility so that if something happens, we can call the, you know, we can expand if we need to temporarily in order to be able to cover things. So it's not the long-term solution, but right now we're not in an environment, you know, where we have a lot of options available. So this will expand our workforce in a way that we otherwise have not been able to come up with a solution for. So I wanted to mention that. She's looking at that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention too that will be coming forward is the leadership team met this week, and then we again met with the teachers union, and we're going to be having a conversation with the paras too about modifying our calendar for this year. Amy had actually mentioned this earlier to me as well. We just didn't have the bandwidth to like dig into it, but you know, now that we've opened school, now we're getting our PD plan, we're working on that. We'll have our PD plan for the year done next week, and part of that is looking at the calendar. So what we're talking about is taking, in the contract, we have 4 additional days for teacher PD during the year. We have 2 at the beginning of the year, and then we have 4 additional all days. And those are very valuable for curriculum development and doing some more intensive types of training. And so 2 of those happen to fall on Fridays, which was strategic when we put the plan together so that families could have long weekends. But of course now Fridays, under this model, are teacher prep days, so we can't take the teacher prep day away, nor do we want to. So what we're looking at is changing those 2 Fridays and making them Mondays, so again, we stay with the long weekend for families. And we were talking about, you know, like a homework-free weekend, unplugged weekends on those weekends, so that students really can take that time and families can take that time and have a moment to like refresh and regroup. So that would be a big, you know, change, and then not having late arrivals or early release days because it just doesn't make sense right now with what we're doing. So that will be coming. I know the last time that we went through this, which was my first time doing a calendar with this committee, was that I brought it forward, we reviewed it, you waited to take your vote until the next meeting. Those are my updates on things coming up and things that are happening.
Susan, I actually invented the homework-free weekend back in '87.
You did? Did you patent that, Mike?
No, unfortunately I didn't.
Ah, you should have.
Probably could have been retired by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have.
Question about, so if we're gonna outsource some of the food services portion, are we gonna have a policy around either take a blood test with these people, because since we're not gonna know who they are, or try to have the same people come in, so that it's.
The same protocols we have with our staff would apply to their, yeah. We wouldn't be, following any other procedure than the one that we are for our employees.
So is this like a catering service type of an idea, like, they're outside food service folks, but are they having the same problems?
Well, some of them, if all the kids are remote, when you go remote, fewer kids serve. Remember how I mentioned when we went remote last year, we were serving about 450 meals, and that went down to about 168.
Mhm.
So for schools that have gone remote, who have outsourced their food service, which is really common, food service is one of those things that's very commonly outsourced. You have these contracts that are in place, just like the bus, but if you're not serving, you don't want to lose your, again, it's one of those situations where we're hoping, and I don't know if it's going to work out, but we're exploring it. We're hoping that maybe we can take advantage of that, and so the food service company would, be able to use their staff here, so that they can keep a viable workforce available to them.
So we're not talking about laying people off, we're
Nope.
talking about moving people down.
That's what
And
we're
how-
thinking,
yeah.
so that it makes us whole there, because as you know, when we do pivot to remote, if we have to go all remote, we're serving out of the elementary school. And so what we're trying to say is that is our remote lunch area, and if we can get that addressed and stabilized, then outsource over here, then, we just felt like strategically that would be a better model than trying to, integrate food service people from a company and ours, and it just seemed like that would be too crazy. So Linda will continue to oversee the elementary school operations, and then we would just outsource at the junior, senior high school. And like I said, in that way, if something goes down, we have a relationship with this company already, and if something were to happen, then we could still keep our kitchen going over there. So if the elementary school had to pivot to remote, then we'd still be able to keep a kitchen going. School. So that was our best solution to some of the challenges that we've been facing, given that the market for employees just seems to be very thin.
Susan, I wanted to say that as a parent and a school board member, I really appreciated all the work that's gone into the pivot to remote, you and the staff in the junior, senior high school. It's been a seamless process from all reports I've gotten, and I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Actually, it was nice that town council acknowledged that.
She
last
did?
night.
Yeah.
It was, felt good.
Well, I think even more exciting than that
They're
is
coming back?
pivoting back.
Yes.
I want the kids here, Looking forward to having them back on Monday, we'll just, keep our fingers crossed that, things will remain stable, but, yeah, I think the staff did great, the students did great, parents have done great, I mean, we just, it's like that face mask we have, we're all in this together, and we are, and everyone's doing their part, and I think if we can continue to do that, we'll be able to hopefully stay open. It really comes down to a staffing issue, really, with the COVID, no matter what it is. If certain groups of people, it's not even that they have COVID, it's a mass of people that quarantined. It just, just because we do not have a sub pool. We just don't. We can't get enough to just run the basics, or we're skinny there. And so if anybody goes down, there just isn't backups, and it's not because we're not advertising, they're just not out there, so, anything we can do in these areas to kind of give us a little bit of, backup, in some areas makes it easier, and gives us a little bit of insurance that we can keep going, so.
So Susan, during the remote period, was there utilization of food pickup at the elementary school by?
Yes, and
Okay.
yes, they continued to do that, as we did when we all went to remote. So, yep, when we go remote, even temporarily, lunches are still available to be picked up behind the elementary school. Not many take advantage of it, or not many did in this case, but it is available.
I have a question about the pivot to remote. So, in this case, DHS told us to go remote, I assume.
They don't tell us, they never tell us what to do, right?
Oh, okay.
They could never tell us that, right? They can just tell us
Recommend.
who has to go in quarantine, and, I have to look at what the impact of what they're telling me has on us and our ability to keep the schools open. So that becomes my decision.
Okay, so, I guess at what point, how long can the superintendent
board decision.
So that even if it was the rest of the year, we can.
Well, I mean, I'd certainly have a conversation, but
Oh,
it
yeah,
wouldn't
you
be.
notify the system, no, certainly, but.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'd let you know in the same way we did in this case. It's not really a, if we're not able to open school, then we're not able to open school. If we're able to open school, then we are. Some of these things, the way it's looking right now, and who knows, we're all learning as we go along. I never thought I was gonna be sitting here having to grapple with some of these things. Who would? But the way it looks, as we've opened the first couple of weeks, is that it seems that things will probably go back and forth. There might be a point again during the flu season where it just gets untenable and we have to go out. But those conditions can change and then we can come back in. So, I don't know, Gary, honestly, if we're gonna face a situation that, we're all of a sudden gonna say, we're gonna be out for 3 months. It's not kinda shaping up to look that way right now.
If everybody gets their flu shot, everybody washes their hands, everybody wears a mask, clean mask, we might be able to pull it off.
We might, coming back and forth, I think it's gonna be situations like this, okay, we're gonna have to bump out for a couple of weeks. And it's all gonna be contingent on, can we properly staff? I think it's really gonna come down to that. Is it feasible to open the doors? And to me, that's a question, it either is or it isn't. It's not been a matter of wondering.
So I think Gary and Susan, you raised this interesting point, which I think it's helpful for people to know, for the board and the public, is that when there is a positive case, amongst a staff member, there's a whole reporting process or protocol after that the Department of Health and Human Services, for the state of New Hampshire overtakes. We don't do, meaning we, school district or superintendent or admin, don't do the contact tracing. That's
the,
DHS takes that over.
that's right.
Then they'll come back after and tell us, who should be quarantined, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happens when I get notified, I get all the facts together, if I'm informed, and then I call DHHS and I do a confirmation with them. And then, in this case, because we've only had one, that's been COVID, inside of our schools. And then at that point, we talk about who might be potential close contacts. And then, so we have this group of potential, based on my knowledge in that moment. And then based on that, they say to me, okay, well, let's tentatively quarantine the following individuals until they can complete their investigation. When their investigation's over, then they come back and they say, this person is in fact gonna stay in quarantine, these people can be released. Anybody that is even potential quarantine gets tested. So by the time, at least this time, it's only happened once, so I don't have lots and lots of experience with it, but the way it came down this time, it took several days before I knew who was going to be the final quarantine folks. But by the time that happened, the people that were potentials all had been quarantined and had been tested, all of which came back negative. That's how it works. At least that's how it worked this time. When it's been a matter of somebody in the community, a family member of a student gets a positive hit, then at that point, the family is quarantined. And then in those cases, again, it's a similar thing, but I don't get to know who the contact tracing is, but I do know who it is and who those kids are. And then I have a conversation, and the conversation then is more around how long is the child gonna be out, potentially? And what are their quarantine dates? What are the isolation dates? When do they expire? So that, we can help support them while they're out. So far, it hasn't been a situation where we've had to pivot a classroom or anything like that. We just haven't had a situation like that, and that's what we kind of thought it was gonna look like. We thought it was gonna look like, we'd have to pivot out of class. That hasn't happened. I'm not saying it's not going to. That just hasn't been our experience yet, but that could happen too. It could be.
I was surprised I didn't realize the superintendent could switch everyone to remote for a full year, hypothetically, could switch everyone to remote for a full year.
Well, I think we've seen that, you know, we've seen that it's had to happen, you know, they make, certainly if you're putting together a plan, you know, you're gonna work just like we did, and I know all of my colleagues did do that, and so it's a collaborative experience. When you're on the ground and you're live, you know, there isn't time to, you know, we're not gonna call a meeting. First of all, I can't tell you the particulars. I can't give you the details, right? I'm saying not me to you, I'm just saying any superintendent can't provide the level of detail that would be necessary for you to understand the dynamics to make a decision. So I think that's the way why the laws are the way that they are, you know? We set a policy, we set a plan, that certainly I would say is within the wheelhouse of the board. It's kind of a plan, just like the strategic plan would be and other things. But then modifications or pivots or changes, it's like school cancellations, that's usually what you have your executive officer oversee.
I guess for some reason I thought there was a certain amount of time, like school could be canceled for 2 days and then we'd have to go to the or some sort of,
No.
I guess I didn't realize.
I mean, I think you know me by now. I just saying, I don't know how I would know to cancel for 3 months.
That's the way this is sort of
I just-
shaking out, you know.
Right, I can see how, like, when we put our plan together, if a part didn't come together, you know, like it did in other school districts, I can see how you would make the decision to stay remote. You know, I think Dover, maybe we're gonna start remote. I get that because you're going into it, but
If you had probably a critical mass of staff, that it wasn't, you know, fill one here or there, but just,
right, or they couldn't
broad.
get PPE. Some
Yeah.
of them, many of the plans, I was on a call with the superintendents earlier today. We have a meeting on Thursday mornings. And part of many plans were that they were going to reevaluate in October. And one of the superintendents said, so for those of you who are reevaluating, what has changed that would allow you to then be able to open school? And I thought that was an interesting question to pose. And in some cases, it enabled them to have like a little more planning time to see if, you know, they could get maybe PPE in, or if they could, you know, resolve some of the challenges that employees were having. You know, make accommodations based on ADA that, you know, was such a compressed time. You know, some folks, we didn't have tons, you know, we didn't have tons of ADA ourselves, and it was, not because we're great, or it just happens that way, right? Other school districts, if you have 25% of your staff that need ADA accommodations to crank through all those machinations and what you can and can't do, and get doctor's notes, and you just, you know, so some of them said, you know, they thought if they had more time, but in many cases, you know, those issues roll into other issues, and so they're still trying. Everybody's trying to get their kids back in, and whether they're going to be able to or not is just in some ways, I hate to say kind of luck of the draw type thing, but it kind of seems to be that way.
We were in a fortunate situation having had this school and stuff, so
Yeah, but I know, I mean, I see it. I mean, everybody looks like they've aged about 10 years when I see them on these calls, because it's just so hard. This is so hard. Every little bit of it. It's like I said.
they must have kids at home as well.
Yeah, and you know, you keep having to come up with a plan, and then another plan, and another plan, and another plan, and it's just, it's really,
Well, like you said,
really challenging.
it takes one staffing issue to shut the whole thing down.
It does. It does. So, but, you know, like I said before, that the other thing that this has done is it said that the protocols we have in place are working.
Right.
When it all came down in the end, it was one positive and one quarantine, because social distancing, they were able to determine, I'm saying inside, I don't know who
Right.
the other people that came in contact,
Right.
I'm saying inside of our schools, the exposure was like very limited, you know? Initially, we thought it was more, and they determined it to just be one other person, which says people are following the social distancing, everybody's, you know, people are wearing their masks, you know, we're doing the screening, our contact tracing is working. There's a couple of things that, you know, we're trying to work out some some structure, so maybe we can actually have, you know, PE go outside. We're trying to come up with a protocol around that. We know it's important at the elementary school in particular. We're trying to figure it out. And if we can put structure in place and the protocols in place to do the contact tracing and all of that, you know, maybe we can move forward and be able to do a little bit more in that area. So we've been very fortunate, and like I showed at the meeting last night, kids in the SRO gleefully, out in the front of the school, jumping rope, is a joyous moment for us in our community. So we'll take it. We had a tough year last year. We're having a better year this year, so it's good.
Any questions? Okay, so a second discussion, or actually our first discussion item is the facilities shared service agreement. And Susan, the board, a little background on that? And
Yes, so there's not tons that have changed here. Essentially, my understanding is that when the whole concept of shared services was, I guess, agreed to, there was two areas that were focused on. One was facilities and the other was finance. And the finance did not work out the way that everyone had hoped, but the facilities piece has. At the time, just I guess out of convenience, the facilities person was going to be a town employee that we would then reimburse the town for, and the finance position was going to be a school employee, and the town would reimburse us for their piece. But the finance piece, as we know, didn't work out, and so we had the shared facilities position. But the school district pays 2/3 of the cost for that. And so the difference here really is around swapping it so that this becomes a school employee, since we pay the majority of it, and the town would reimburse us for their portion of the cost. So really, in essence, the language changes in here all are just about making that switch. So one item that is different is item number 6. And so this was a topic of conversation, I think, all year. Mike and I met with the board chair, the council chair, and the town manager several times, and we were talking about, does this structure of, contribution towards these positions make sense? And so we've talked about a variety of different ways that we could kind of allocate, like have a formula for how we would split the cost. But at this point, the change that we made that seemed to make sense was, since our budgets are already approved, that what we would do is just say that we will pay for this position based on what our budget allocations are this year, not split hairs, it's the same tax dollars. And that since our building project is over, that when we get the new person in place, we would keep track of how much of their time is spent doing town work versus school work, and that in the future, we'll make our decisions based on what we find to be the proper allocation based on the time they spend. That's what so number 6, that's what it basically says, and that's different than the way the cost share was constructed in the prior agreement. So that's really it, other than dates and, changing that they'd be a school employee, and the towns would, we'd evaluate, be responsible for the evaluation collaboratively, but the actual person that would write it would be the school department as opposed to the town.
Thank
So
you,
that's
Susan.
it.
There are, just some history, there are several, I think, continuing advantages that I see to this agreement based on our own experience and just based on common sense. I don't think either the town or the school alone might be able to justify the level of a sophisticated facilities director that we could have collectively and have that skill set there. And you know, and this isn't peculiar to Newmarket, but it happens in a lot of other towns that, you know, they may be doing different things on the town side, facilities-wise, and then different things in the school, and losing opportunities to save, you know, and to sort of have, you know, synchronous systems, and you know, have things really work together, and have common maintenance plans, and sort of have person in charge of all the facilities when you go to do your capital improvement planning every year. So for those reasons, and probably additional ones, I think this still makes a lot of sense. And especially when we're, you know, we have these nice new buildings, we need somebody with sufficient expertise to make sure that the maintenance is happening, you know, and that we get the full value out of them. They don't, you know, depreciate prematurely.
That was definitely part of the beginning concept, especially with facilities, because when we looked at even our two buildings and what we have here, we didn't have a dedicated person to monitor the maintenance. So things fell through the cracks year after year after year. The boiler only held together because we had people who could hold it together for us. And it became apparent that because we are all using the same tax base, as Susan said, we need to make logical decisions and increase the buying power, and this person coordinating those efforts for both the town and the school helps that immensely, I think.
We also, we're buying the same things separately,
Mm-hmm.
spending more money, we've got better deals when we combine them, so we
I-
save money.
I was shocked to learn that the second floor and the third floor had two different phone systems that weren't communicating to each other. That point, when these were not shared, did not make any sense to me. And that's why I think these shared services, when they can work effectively, benefit us all.
It is the same system now.
Good.
Yeah.
It makes so much more. That was.
A lot of things are the same. I mean, you know, we have similar types, as Mike said so well, of standardized
It's good.
HVAC systems and things like that. So I think it's been successful, and if you're having a good experience and it's working, then you should continue doing it. And I do want to say, there's so many ways that we support each other.
Yeah.
I don't think people know that, like, for example, when this COVID, outbreak occurred, and we went remote, we didn't need all of our nursing equipment. We didn't need all the temperature, but the police department did, and the fire department did, so that we gave them our equipment, which they used, you know, until they could get, you know, some of their own. We had our guys go over, and the custodian at the police department, fell sick, and so we went over and we did some cleaning, and we sanitized once a week. We're replacing the carpet on our floor. We're replacing the carpet in the town finance office. I mean, it's not a matter of, drawing a line in the sand and saying,
Yeah.
we're us and you're them, and it just isn't, it just isn't like that. When we had the Gopher Fund, they had the capacity, they let us bump into theirs, so there's lots of ways that we try to support each other. And even if we're two separate entities, we realize that we're the same community, so we try to operate in that spirit, so.
Susan, we should tell you that in New Hampshire, not so long ago, it was not permitted for us to work together. It was, legislative change had to come to allow us to share these services. So, and that's a relatively new evolution. So I think in that time, we've come a long way from the meeting that we had last night with the town council to having these employees that are servicing both sides. I think it really does benefit all of us well. As well as, like you said, when we have a situation where our monies are not there, we can go to them and say, we need to partner in this way. Gary talked about, Mulaski and the group giving us the roadway at the elementary school. I think when we were really started looking at this at the beginning, there were a million ways that sharing was happening. Plowing and rec center and all sorts of different stuff where we were working together anyway, so it's just nice to have it codified.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the MOU? Is it MOA or MOU?
I always said agreement, but it could be
Agreement. Understanding.
understanding, MOU.
So, just procedurally, if we approve this tonight, I would sign it, then the town council would need to approve it. And if and when they approve it, then the position would then go out for hire immediately. And I don't think it can happen soon enough. We want that person in getting familiar with our buildings, because there'll be some time to get up to speed, and I'm sure Greg Marles will be helpful with that as well, to bridge that knowledge gap. So, but we want to get that going. So, I'll take it out of order if there's nothing further, since we're talking about it right now. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve the shared services agreement for facilities?
Second it.
Is there any further discussion or comment?
Yes, I'd just like to thank, Dave Tracy for his work.
Oh, yeah.
Interim, facilities person's done a great job.
Here, here. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous, and that's passed. Okay, and school board goals. So we talked about our goals at the retreat. When was that? 2 weeks ago?
So, a week, 1 week?
God,
week ago.
one meeting flows into another. Here's what I would suggest we do, is that we talked about some of the goals that we had last year as a board that probably should carry over. I would start with those. I'll get those sort of on their own goals for this coming year. And what I suggest we do is that, board members individually, between now and the next meeting, the earlier the better, submit briefly what they think our goals ought to be. There may be some overlap for that. And I'll collect it all, and I'll put it down, and at the next meeting, on the October 15th, I suggest we discuss them, and maybe we'll have enough consensus at that meeting to arrive at those goals. Does that make sense to everyone?
Well, wonder if we took our October 15th and just made it a retreat.
Could do that.
We're gonna start looking at budget.
Mhm.
We've got this stuff, we probably should get together again and, make it a non-public, just so we can get ourselves ready.
Yeah, it won't be a non-public, but I mean, we could make it into a,
Whatever it is.
yeah, we could make it into a retreat, and sort of like a workshop almost.
Do it here,
We could do it right here.
just like this.
Yeah, yeah, I'm game for that, as long as everybody else is, and we have the time. I mean, I'm not, don't know what our regular meeting agenda is gonna look like on October 15th, but we could, if folks are able, we could start maybe a little early. I mean, we had a good discussion about them last time,
Fine
so
with me.
I think we kind of touched upon things, so nothing probably will be surprising.
And I like Susan's concept that she brought up in the retreat, and Mike, you just hit on it about, when we look at them, there's still some work to go in a good number of them, and how do we just tweak those to address 2021?
Yep. What's the pleasure? Do we want to start at 4 on the 15th? Maybe a little early?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's fine with me.
People be good with that?
I can do it.
Okay. We'll arrange for some, let's plan on meeting here, but we'll arrange for some light refreshments or whatever, because depending on how long we go, we don't want people fading away. But, so yeah, if folks could get their ideas to me, and I'll collect them and put them down and get them out to folks, so everybody can see what the thoughts are, and we can come back and discuss it here as a group.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. So down to action items, we have the September 17th, 2020 public and non-public meeting minutes in our binder. Were there any edits or notes that we need to make there?
Mike, the only thing I thought of was I was in that meeting remotely,
Yeah.
and that's not noted, so I thought
Okay.
it might want to be, just for the record.
I thought of that too.
So it is a non-public, non-public.
Yep, good catch. Any others? Would somebody like to make a motion to approve those minutes of September 17th, 2020, public and non-public?
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or edits? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. And then, Kim, do you have the manifests?
I do. I move that we accept the total of all manifests of $456,679.04.
So moved.
Amy seconds.
Second.
Any discussion or comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous as well. Then leaves of absences, Susan.
Yes, I had mentioned at our last meeting that we had a number of existing staff members who were support staff who are taking leaves of absence so that they can fill teaching positions here while we're in this, hybrid remote learning and on-campus model. So these 3 teachers are asking for leaves of absence, and what this allows them to do is maintain access to the positions they left. So at the end of this year, they're entitled to the position. And we support that. We'd like to keep them with us, so,
Yeah, it's nice.
yeah.
Nice to hear that ability.
So we appreciate their willingness to take on a different role for this year, and certainly want to preserve their employment for the upcoming school year.
Okay.
Motion, we accept the leave of absences for the 3 paraprofessionals who are incoming teachers, and thank them very much for doing it.
I'll second that.
Are there 3, or am I counting 4?
I thought there were 3.
There's 3.
I'm looking at 4. Alexander, okay, this is just your memo.
Yeah,
Summary,
that's my
okay,
memo.
got ya. Yes, so there's a motion, is there a second?
I second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion?
No.
Thanks for the flexibility, it's much appreciated. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. We've already done the shared services agreement and the fall coaches. Susan, we've got summaries in our packet.
Yes, you do. So Principal Dalton is recommending 4 individuals to fill coaching positions for the fall sports that we're able to offer. We have 1 assistant varsity boys soccer coach that is yet to be filled, but we hope to have that to you at the next meeting.
Susan, this is probably something I forgot, but are the JV coaches helping with the varsity stuff? Is that what's happening?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if you remember in our plan and our guidelines, we said that we would have JV coaches, because we need more people.
Yep.
In order to be able to follow protocols, so that's why we have the JV.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's what I remember.
Any, yep, need a motion.
Make a motion to confirm all the approving of the fall coaches.
Second.
Is there any further comment or question? None, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, it's unanimous. Then the last item on the action items is confirming hiring appointments, and we have a list at the back of the packet.
Those in red are the changes. No professional staff, in terms of hires.
Okay.
Progress on getting a few more paras and a few more monitors, so we're happy about that. And you don't typically have those nominations,
Right.
but I figure it doesn't hurt.
It's good to have the updates.
Doesn't hurt.
Okay. Any questions? I'm hearing none, okay. So that's to the end of the agenda, and one thing just popped into my mind is that a month and a half ago or so, we moved to suspend, I think, the bidding guidelines, and I thought the sunset was somewhere around, was it October 1st or the end of October? Good, we were smart at the time, okay. I just didn't want that to, trip us up at all, so. Good. Anything else? I don't know is a reason to go into non-public tonight.
My evaluation.
Yep, can do that.
We need to confirm the hiring focus, if there isn't any actual appointments.
Usually the non-certified you don't. You can if you like, but
Didn't want to say.
I just keep the same language on and give you an update just so you have it. I think it's important for you to know.
It's helpful to see in that format.
Yeah.
I'd seek a motion to go into non-public pursuant to 91A, 3, Roman 2, letter A, small letter A.
So moved.
By roll call vote, Ms. Shelton.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. McKinney, Mr. Swanson.
Aye.
Hilton.
Aye.
We are in non-public now. It is 6:03.